Hey everybody, what's up? It's episode 259 of the Marvelous Podcast. It's me, Kirsten, and I'm so stoked because today I'm going to chat with you about something that I have been wanting to share about for a while, and it's been probably one of the most important lessons that I've learned so far in 2020. And there's been a lot of lessons, let's be real. There's a lot of stuff that's been happening in our lives. This is just something personal for me, near and dear to me, and I'm going to just go for it. It's a little bit of like a weird topic, a little bit of a touchy subject. And I'm not going to profess to be an expert. I'm not going to profess to be perfect at this. I just want to share with you this is something that I'm working on. It's something that we are really processing as a family and something that we have just kind of comprehended in a different way how important it is. And that is, without further ado, let me just name the subject here. How to stop talking badly about people. Oh, now I know this might seem a little bit cliche and say, why? Of course I want to stop talking badly about people. Of course, here's the thing. We have this tendency, this culture where we're like, oh, I'm just so not about drama and I just don't really care what people think of me and I don't care what people do with their lives. And we still have the tendency to pass a lot of judgment and to say a lot of things that, later on we regret. And I've been in situations where I have been on the receiving end of a lot of really harsh criticism. And I've also had to really reflect on my own words and look at some of the things that I've said and, expressed about other people. None of us are perfect in this situation, right? I have a really, really good friend who I'm going to bring on the podcast soon. You guys will love her. Her name is Stacy, and she's just got this amazing gift. And her gift is that she is legitimately, and I will tell you this because I've been her friend for a couple of years now, she's legitimately not threatened by other people. Like, she's so excited for them. She doesn't understand like that human tendency to be like, oh, wait, you kind of worry me because you're really good at the same things I'm good at. And I feel like I need to kind of keep you at arm's length. She just doesn't operate that way. And she's going to come on. We're not going to talk about that specifically. Maybe it'll come up. But I was having a chat with her today on how this is just such a really huge life lesson that I have gained through the year. And I guess through my life, because I've always said like, oh, I just want to be a kind person and I want to do good by people. And then I think because we can get so stuck in our own limiting beliefs and our own limiting stories, we like to make up stories about other people. We're really, really good at it. It's just kind of it's the way that we've learned how to see the world. We want to keep people in categories. We want to make sense of things around us. We want to keep ourselves safe. And so we start labeling and we start assigning a lot of meaning to a lot of people. And we, start these little stories and these conversations in our head about people. And so that is actually what I've decided is probably the number one cure for talking badly about other people. Now, you're going to rate yourself on this, and it requires a lot of self-awareness. And I think what made me feel like this would be a really good topic to discuss here on the podcast is I really am transitioning, if you haven't picked up on that yet, into talking more about the mind and mastering the mind. I'm very, very passionate about it. I've read a ton of books. I've spent a lot of money on mindset coaches. I actually hired somebody once who was supposed to be like a business coach and help me do a lot of stuff with funnels. And I think the number one thing I got from that coach was her mindset coaching. And I learned a lot about myself, and I learned a lot about my limiting beliefs and my stories and all that kind of stuff. And so I'm just really, really razzed up about this. And the cool thing is I feel like from day one, when I started this podcast, it was my number one goal to really wake people up, to help them to understand how much potential and power that they truly have that they're not tapping into. And so I'm going down this road and I'm really starting to understand like the power of the mind. And it's funny because a year ago I started a group called Mastermind with Kirsten Tyrell. And I was excited about it then. And I was excited about it 5 years ago when I had the concept to start the podcast. And I was talking to moms and I wanted to help them to, grasp the vision and really lean into who they wanted to be. And now I feel like it's gone through this baptism by fire into really, truly understanding what the mind is made of, because I've used it for creating amazing things. And I've also kind of lost track of what the mind is doing. And I've allowed it to create a lot of things that I didn't love in my life. And so it's kind of gone from this theoretical, wow, this is so fascinating, into this very real world application. And I'm seeing it at work every single day in my life. And I'm starting to notice, a lot of things about the way that I function and those stories that have been circulating in my mind for a really long time. So when I really broke down and got into the nitty gritty of like, how do I stop saying things? How do I stop having these moments of criticism? And here's the secret, you guys. You just stop thinking negative things about people. That's it. That's all. Okay, we're done. Episode over. Just stop thinking negative thoughts about people and the world will be problem-free and stress-free and filled with peace. Oh, if only it were that simple. So on this episode, I just want to give you a few tips to help you with that aspect of the mind mastery. This is something I'm so excited to share with you. It's something that I put into practice and I've seen it have a massive impact in our family, the way that we talk now, the way that we encounter other people. We have had really great conversations with other family members and other people where I've noticed the increase of love and joy and peace that we feel as human beings has just skyrocketed. So let's just get into some of those tips and tricks that I have for you about mastering the mind and not giving into the temptation to talk bad about others, because you're not even giving into the temptation to think badly about others. So tip number 1, first of all, you have to be aware of the fact that you are thinking. And I know that sounds kind of weird. You're like, I'm thinking negative thoughts. But there's so many of us who go through life with complete autopilot in our brains. We're not even aware of how many thoughts are passing through our brains at any given second. And if you take the time to be aware of this, you almost kind of remove yourself from the voice, from your mind, and you start to look at it as like a spectator. You're in the audience and you're starting to observe the thought and you're just listening and you're aware. You don't judge it. You don't evaluate it. We'll get to that. But first, just that awareness of, okay, this thought just came to me. Where is this thought coming from? I am thinking this thought. It just appeared. Okay. Once you have awareness for your thoughts and you're kind of give it a little bit of not validation, but just, hey, observation. I know that I'm thinking something right now, and now I can make the space around it to evaluate the thought and evaluate how it's making me feel. So tip number 2, ask yourself why this triggers the thoughts you are experiencing. So maybe you observe something about somebody and your instant reaction is you think this negative thought about them, right? You think something mean, you think something judgmental. Well, the first thing you want to ask yourself after you've evaluated that you're having this thought and you're aware of it, you're not just letting it pass through on autopilot. You're not just going through the motions of seeing the person, thinking the thing, saying something out loud, texting somebody about it. You're actually stopping and you're evaluating all these steps. So that number 2 is ask yourself why it triggers you. What is it about this person, this experience that's bringing up negative feelings for you? And negative isn't just always like anger. When we judge others, there's a reason for it. It's usually brought on by feelings of frustration. Maybe it's embarrassment, like secondhand embarrassment for them. You see somebody wearing something you would never wear and you feel cringy and you need to observe it. And you have to think the negative thought, or so you think. But why? Why is this triggering you? Why does them living their existence, this moment, them speaking their truth, them living their life, why does it trigger you? Oftentimes, what we do not like about others are the very things that we do not like about ourselves. And that's a really, really hard one to acknowledge and to lean into. And I'm sure you're going to listen to this and say, oh, no, I just really don't like when people do that because I would never do that. I would never wear that. I would never say that. I would never treat people that way. But the fact of the matter is it bothers you because it is something that brings up some kind of trigger, some kind of awareness for a piece of yourself that you don't love, that you wish you didn't have. I've had to step into that. I've had to look at all the people who trigger me, all the people who bother me, and I've had to have really honest conversations with myself to say, why? Why does this person get under my skin? And I noticed, even if it wasn't that I necessarily had the exact same attributes, I was terrified of ever having those attributes. I was afraid of ever being perceived the way I was perceiving that person. And I never, ever wanted to have those characteristics. And there was a piece of me that already had some of those characteristics. And I was so afraid of people perceiving them or noticing those flaws and noticing those weaknesses. And so now anytime I'm bothered by somebody, I immediately go inward and I say, okay, why is this bothering me? Why is this person just grating on my nerves today? What is it about them? And I read a really, really beautiful book that talked about, it's called Light in the Wilderness. And she talks about finding, being more responsive. And I'm not even going to get the words right. It was like responsive and another R word. But instead of just reacting and responding, I think that was it. So the reacting might be the immediate like, that bugs me. Shut up. The responsive would be, this person is needing something from me right now. She's talking extra loud because she really needs to be heard, right? She's doing this thing that really gets under my skin because she needs something. And so when we lean into that being responsive and giving them the positive energy that they need back instead of responding and reacting with a negative energy, everything is so much better. Okay, so remember, we're still just getting into like not talking bad about people, but look at how much work has to happen in just this internal monologue that we're having before we can even attack the action. Okay, so now we get into tip number 3. Resist the urge to indulge the negative thought. Okay, you're going to spend some time here. You're going to spend a lot of time here. You're going to hear the loop in your head. The negative thoughts are going to come. You're going to be aware of them. You're going to evaluate them. And you're still going to have this urge to say, oh, but I just really need to tell someone. This was just so funny. I can't not tell anyone. It was so embarrassing. I need to tell somebody what this person did. And it's going to be really hard, especially if you've lived your life in that habit. Even if you don't consider yourself like a mean, spiteful person, but you are just very vocal and you're very observant of others and maybe pass judgment a little bit quickly, you're going to have a lot of time in this space to really exercise that muscle that's going to want to instantly lash out, instantly say something, instantly be validated by somebody else saying, oh yeah, you're right. And I think that's why we do it. I think that's why we feel the need to talk negatively to others about others, is because we want to kind of take the space on the positive side of things and say, see, I'm not that person. She looks this way, and that instantly, means I'm the opposite of that. So I'm going to put myself over here in this camp of I'm better by putting her down. And you know what, you guys, as many of us as say we don't do this and we don't want to be those kind of people, it is so rampant and it is so common, and it's something that we really need to stop, but it has to start inside. It can't start. We can't talk about the problem and not talk about how we have to take ownership for it. And to do that, we really have to get into the deeper psychology of it. So tip number 3 is resisting the urge to indulge in the negative thought. If you sit in it, if you hang out with that thought and it becomes just so enticing and you have to share it, guess what? You're going to share it. So the self-control really comes in of saying, I don't need to indulge this thought. Peace out. So tip number 4 is finding a new release. Instead of giving into the temptation to say the negative thing, find something positive to replace the thought with. Sit with it as long as you need to. Give it a moment. If somebody's triggering you, find something else to focus your attention on. What you focus on grows. Guess what? The minute you start being obsessed with the flaws of your spouse, of your significant other, of your mom, guess what you're going to notice all the time? The exact flaw that you've brought your attention to. So when you meet a new person, when somebody gets under your skin, you have an enemy, find something that is praiseworthy. Find something that is positive. Instead of focusing on the flaws, focus on something else. Bring your attention to something else. Now, I want to tell you, this is really a gift to you. This, of course, is going to make the world a better place. We're going to have more positive energy. We're going to have more light. We're going to have more truth, more kindness, more love. But I promise you that the person who will benefit the most if you follow these practices is you. You may feel, and I will tell you this right now, we get addicted to drama. We get addicted to negativity. We get addicted to these cycles of thought that we have. They become real to us. They feel comfortable. They feel safe. Even if it doesn't make sense, because they're not actually feeding us and making us better people, they're not making us healthier, we still become addicted to the pattern. And so the biggest benefit you're going to have when you switch out the pattern, when you try and live more fulfilled in a positive light, when you try and send out love, when you try and send out, even if you're not giving people compliments every time you see them, but you're just switching the way you think about others. And the first thing you do when you encounter a stranger is notice a positive trait instead of a negative. Or you know what? It's even harder on the people you're closest to. It's harder on the people that you just so badly want to hate. If you can look at them and you can find the positives. I've been in situations where, we do this, we validate each other, and I'm having a riff with somebody and I talk to somebody else about it, and they want to validate me. They want to tell me what I want to hear. And we have to be really careful of that. We have to be really careful of surrounding ourselves with yes men. And I've noticed, it's kind of like when your sibling, you can be mean to them, but then the minute somebody else speaks up against them, you're like, no. We should be that way, but even without the negative speak, that we start the conversation that way. We should really be advocating for our enemies. And so I've actually been in situations where people want to talk really, really negatively about someone that I, by all counts, should have a really bad attitude towards. And I found that I don't feel very good when I indulge those conversations. And I feel so much better when I say, yeah, what they did was wrong, but as a person, we're not even going to go there. Right? We're just not going to go there. I'm not saying I'm perfect at this. It's been a practice. It's a constant daily practice. So all of these tips I'm giving you are personal. These are ones that I've actually implemented. I've kind of reverse engineered my process. So tip number 5 is kind of what I was just saying. Create boundaries and start to speak up against negative talk. Start with your own mind, obviously. Take ownership for your own thoughts, for your own words, for your own actions, but then hold a standard. And I don't say like, oh, I'm so much better than you because I don't speak ill of others. No. We just need to stand up and be an example. And here, let me just tell you, you guys, we all know this, but yet we all think we're immune to this law, this rule. This is just very much real. If you are hanging out with someone and they're talking badly about others to you, you can bet your bottom dollar that the minute you're gone, they're talking to someone else about you. Even if you think you're wonderful, even if you think you are the bee's knees and that nobody could ever say a negative thing about you. Because guess what? That's what your ego brain wants to tell you, that you can do no wrong. If you're spending time with people who their culture and their way of living is to speak negatively about people the minute they're out of the room, I promise you that you are not immune from the negative comments. I promise you that they are speaking badly about you. Now, guess what? When you start living your life in a situation like this where you don't speak negatively of others, you're going to immediately repel the people who thrive on that. It's going to be a little bit uncomfortable for you. You're going to be like, oh, I have FOMO. I'm missing out. Like, they're going to talk about me. Yes, they are. They are going to talk about you. And your living at a higher standard is going to make them uncomfortable. And they're going to talk about it. But guess what? At least you're standing up for your own standard and you are elevating your own energy and you get to feel happy. You get to feel good. And this isn't your mission to convert everyone to being better citizens and better humans. This is you just committing to having a life full of more light, more truth, more joy, where all of that negativity doesn't bring you down into the space of just the yuck, the darkness. Okay? So, the 5 tips again. Be aware of the fact that you are thinking. I know that sounds so weird. If you've never really gone through like meditation and you've never silenced your mind and you've never been aware of how loud it is, but I promise you there's so much power in even just step 1 of being aware of the fact that you are thinking. Step number 2, ask yourself why this triggers you. Get real, get honest. What is it that you don't like about yourself that they're bringing up for you? And tip number 3, resist the urge to indulge the negative thought. Hold off as long as you can. Just keep resisting. Don't let the word vomit come out. Tip number 4, find a new release. Flip the script, change the perspective, find something you love, find something positive. And tip number 5, create boundaries. Be an example to others. Okay. Those are very, very simple things, but I'm interested. I want you guys to tag me on social media. Let me know as you put this into practice, what came up for you. And you don't have to tell me like, I suffer with like really bad, consistent negative thoughts. You don't have to tell me the negative thoughts that you resisted, but I want to hear how uncomfortable or how natural this is for you. I want to know what your standards are on, avoiding the negative thoughts that will inevitably avoid the negative words that we speak to others. I think it's really important to give each other grace. There are times when I've let people into the very, very intimate parts of my life only to find out that there's just judgment. And then I have to look at myself and say, but I've done the same thing. I've been in spaces where I've been able to see people at their most vulnerable. And instead of giving them grace, I've been like, ooh, yikes. That's a hot mess, right? So even if you never vocalize the thought, be aware that you're thinking the thought and flip it and be like, how would I feel if somebody saw me at my most vulnerable and they were saying these things about me, that they were thinking these things about me? Just, if anything else, if nothing else, just imagine people can read your thoughts. It will change the way you indulge in those thoughts big time. Because things that kind of pop in here and there, they're not always you, right? You have influence all the time around you. And so, but it's the indulging. It's the giving in to the negative thoughts. It's making that your reality. It's making that comfortable. It's making that the baseline normal for who you are as a person. And I promise, because I've been on the giving and the receiving end, because I'm a human being, of speaking negatively about others, of thinking negatively about others, and I've flipped it and I've gone to the higher vibration, if you will, of thinking positive, loving thoughts about others. That includes with my own family members, with my children, instead of noticing the things that are grating on my nerves after a long day with the kids, just looking at them and finding the thing that I love the most about them and bringing more focus to that, bringing more focus to the people that I love the most. The positive traits helps those to grow and expand. These are things we've heard, these are things we've read, but I hope that this episode will give you a little bit more to help you in a practice. I think this is so important, especially as we're in this turbulent time where it's so easy to just speak out of turn. It's so easy to speak our mind. And if we can have a little bit more discipline and be a little bit more mature and listen to our thoughts and be aware of them and how they might hurt others, I think that we will be contributing a lot more than we think to the higher joy and energy that we have going on in this world right now. Okay, thank you so much for listening. If you want to learn more about mastering the mind, go join my Facebook group. It's called Mastermind with Kirsten Tyrell. I would love to have you in there, have discussions about topics like these. And if you want to really unlock more of the power of your mind, go check out the Manifesting Challenge. You can go to kirstentyrell.com/manifesting challenge. I will also link to it in the show notes if you guys head over to the blog. Thank you so much for listening. I love you so much for being here, for being a part of this community. It's really one of my favorite places to be, and I have so many fun episodes coming your way. So we'll see you on the next one. Have a marvelous day.